Greetings and welcome to another impressions video here at Words About Games, and today we're going to be looking at Legends of Runeterra. Legends of Runeterra is a collectible card game set in the world of League of Legends, using the characters and settings of Riot's MOBA as the backdrop for its CCG. You can take on the game's AI or jump online for head-to-head battles, using either the game's pre-made decks or custom-built decks you've created yourself with the cards you unlock, or head into Expeditions mode to fight against other players using a draft. If you've played a CCG before, then Runeterra will probably be quite familiar to you. You bring a deck of cards full of creatures and spells with varying power levels and abilities to battle opponents, with turns going backwards and forwards. Your mana, the resource you use to play cards, exponentially increases each round, allowing you to play more powerful cards the further into the game you go. Your aim is to find a way past the cards your opponents play to destroy their nexus before they destroy yours. Runeterra does deploy a couple of pretty unique twists on the fairly standard core gameplay mechanics it brings to the table. Each round you pass the ability to attack back and forth, so if you're the attacker in round 1, your opponent will be the attacker in round 2. When you're on the defensive, you can still play cards and block creatures, but you can't attack your enemy, which adds an extra dimension to the strategies you're coming up with on the fly. Certain cards or combos that would be perfect for an assault may need to be held back, and vice versa. Within each round, both players are able to react to anything the other does. Making any kind of action, whether it's attacking, blocking, playing a spell, or even passing, will immediately pass the next action over to your opponent. This back and forth creates another layer of strategy to proceedings. You can attack quickly to guarantee landing some damage on your opponent's nexus, for example, or take some time to set yourself up to deal more damage, but with the knowledge that each card you play gives your opponent the opportunity to respond and play a card of their own. Back and forth is the key to how Legends of Runeterra works, and it creates a really compelling and satisfying gameplay loop. I haven't had a match yet where I've been completely outmatched, nor have I completely steamrolled an opponent. Even in matches where I or my opponent have pulled ahead into a significant lead, it's always been pulled back, or we've always hung in there. You always feel like you have a chance, even when you're getting your teeth kicked in. And almost all of the time, you do. It only takes one card to potentially upend the entire board if you hang in long enough. Most of my matches have been engaging. A few have been exhilarating, intense back and forth duels that could have gone either way multiple times. Even when I lose a game, I've still enjoyed my time playing a lot, and that's a credit to how enjoyably rewarding Runeterra's core gameplay is, aside from the XP and cards and whatnot you unlock. Simply jumping into a match and playing the game is enough to keep me coming back for more. As I mentioned at the top of this video, there are 3 main ways to play the game. The first is against AI opponents. This can be a good way to try out a deck and get a feel for how or if it works, but the AI won't offer up much of a challenge. This is a game you're going to want to play against real people. Luckily, this is a pretty great way to play the game. A big part of this is down to how accessible Riot have made the game. There are a few neat smaller touches that make Runeterra a much more pleasant experience than a traditional CCG, such as being able to inspect any card and hover over its effects for a brief description of what they mean. Even better, clicking on one card will show you its associated cards. So if playing a card will trigger another, you can also see what card that is with a simple mouse click. It also helps that the game's pre-made decks are surprisingly effective in online play. I've been rolling with the game's pre-made Spider deck, powered by Elise, one of the game's champions, which are creature cards that come with game-changing abilities and are able to level up once certain conditions are met, such as having a specific number of spiders on the battlefield in Elise's case. I actually have a positive win-loss ratio using this deck. I'm sure a meta has already developed for the game, one which I'll no doubt eventually run straight into like a brick wall. I've been tinkering with custom decks, but right now I need more cards. Luckily, cards aren't gated behind spending lots of real-world money. You can't purchase cards with money in Legends of Runeterra. Cards are unlocked via chests and crafted with shards or wildcards, all of which are unlocked as rewards by simply playing the game. If and when I get stopped by the meta, I'll still have my absolute favourite mod to fall back on, Expedition. This is a draft-like mode where players select cards over 15 rounds, aiming to create a synergistic deck out of the options presented to them. You pick 2 champions and their associated cards, and then pick 2 cards at a time from different archetypes, with your options determined by the champions you chose at the beginning. The cards you can select aren't limited to what you own, though you can't take them back with you after you finish playing. You're then sent to face the trials, where you need to win 7 games for the maximum possible reward. After each match you play, you're able to augment your deck by trading cards. If you lose a match, you're given an opportunity to keep going, but if you lose 2 in a row, your expedition is over. Each expedition token grants you 2 trails, so you get a lot out of a single token, which seem to be awarded fairly readily. Expedition levels the playing field. It doesn't matter what cards you own or what decks you've come up with. It's all about making the most of what you've got and going head to head with other players in the same boat. Another draw for me is Legends of Runeterra's personality. Champions will banter with one another when they're both on the battlefield, and you communicate with other players primarily through emotes. There's even a super cute Poro that sits beside your deck who cheers you on when you pull off a good move, and who you can idly click when you're waiting for your opponent to take their turn. This is where Runeterra's monetization comes into play, allowing you to buy new emotes, card sleeves, boards, Poro skins and more from the in-game store, and not via loot boxes, thankfully. But what makes this a truly great game is the spectacular customization that's available. There's an incredible depth to the synergies and combos you can find, powered by the incredible versatility of the champion cards. You're completely unrestricted when it comes to mixing and matching champions in their regions, which gives you total freedom to come up with your own combos. I've created everything from decks that relied on poisoning my enemy's cards so that every time they drew one, there was a chance they'd take damage, to decks that generated damage spells whenever any spell was played. It's incredibly satisfying to come up with a strategy and execute it in Legends of Runeterra, and there's a huge amount of depth to the strategies you can devise thanks to the game's particularly robust deck building options. Legends of Runeterra is a powerfully addictive card game. It builds a foundation out of the same core mechanics that have defined the genre, with a few tweaks to how initiative and turn order works that adds a different strategic depth. Whether you want to fine-tune a custom-built deck or dive into Expedition, Legends of Runeterra is a game that can keep you hooked for hours at a time. Thanks very much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it or found it useful, consider sticking around here at Words About Games. Our content includes review impressions of games big and small, a weekly podcast dedicated to discussing the happenings in and around the games industry, weekly opinion videos, reactions, debate-driven top 5 and top 10 lists, a regular Hall of Fame series where we discuss our favourite games, and indie game spotlights. We also stream every Friday and Saturday at twitch.tv/wordsaboutgames. Most importantly, have a brilliant day.